The next time you take a walk at night, check out the sky. There could be dozens of bats flying around you. Give you the creeps? Well, if you don't like bats, if the thought of them makes your skin crawl, this show will change your mind. Through history, bats have gotten a bad rap. They've been called demons of the night, blood-sucking vampires, rats with wings. In reality, they are elegant creatures that can do something no other mammal can do. Bats can fly. There are more than 1,000 species of bats in the world, some with a wingspan 6 feet wide, others barely larger than a moth. The name of their order, Chiroptera, means hand-winged in Greek. If you look at a bat wing, it has the same bone structure of your own hand. Do you hear that? Of course, not many people get close enough to a bat to check out its wing.
And of course, their wing is made up of their arm bones and their finger bones.
Wow, that is a big bat.
Whoops, give me that. I wanted you to see your thumb. Can you poke your thumb out? There's her thumb.
Here's a thumb.
And since Isis has a thumb band on, so I know which bat she is. I have a total of 4.
Okay.
So, but you can see the whole little
Beautiful.
wing thing, and you can probably look through the wing if you're on this side and actually see some of the veins
the
and
joints.
You can see the joints
her arm,
there.
you know, she's big enough I can actually see her
See
arm.
that a little easier than on the micros.
Vicki Beckham Smith is a wildlife educator, which is the reason she's allowed to own bats. It is only because I've been vaccinated for rabies that she's letting me hold one. If her bat bit me and I was not protected, authorities would kill this bat to check for rabies. You're beautiful. Her name is Isis. She's shivering because we just woke her up. Bats sleep during the day, and being disrupted is similar to having the smoke alarm go off in your house at 3 o'clock in the morning. Even so, Isis was doing fine until Vicki brought out a second bat. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Don't go anywhere.
Hang tight.
Yep,
Would we better
you did
put
great.
my hand?
You can support her that way, and sometimes... There you go, Miss Phaedra. Yeah. And sometimes I just let them sit up on my hand like this if that supports them and makes them feel good. Yeah, there you are.
Bats like Isis are important because as they eat fruit, they spit out the seeds and perpetuate the growth of trees in new places. Now, we don't have this kind of bat in Georgia. Instead, we have 16 species of smaller bats with an equally important role. Our bats are supremely skilled at catching insects. A single little brown bat can eat 600 mosquitoes in 1 hour. Bats are nocturnal. They hang out in trees, caves, or buildings during the day. And they are social animals. They often fly in large swarms. That's called an emergence. And we are going to put you right in the middle of one. Deep in the woods of South Georgia, there is this secret spot where a miracle of nature occurs just about every night. It is a rocky, damp, moss-covered place that is not for the squeamish. The creatures who live here spend much of their time looking for an opportunistic meal, lurking in the crevices that make up this land. But that's not why we came. We're here because this is also home to 50,000 bats. We hope to sit in the midst of a bat emergence. So what time do the bats come out, generally?
It'll be right before sunset.
So
we've got about half hour or so.
Researcher Jay Scott agreed to take us to this place on condition that we not reveal its location. We are on private property and headed for a cave that is notoriously dangerous.
Right, and this is where,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and we're going right down there.
The descent is a lot more treacherous than I anticipated.
Okay, this looks pretty steep to me. So is it permissible to go down on your rear end?
Yep.
Oh! All right. Okay. Calm, calm.
Looking at a seemingly endless hole down below, I'm now having second thoughts.
Oh, wow.
And we don't have to go straight down. We're
Oh,
gonna...
I was going to say, that does not look doable to me.
Yeah, no, that definitely is not doable.
Okay.
Jay keeps saying things like, grab this rock, swing around, and drop. Not very reassuring. From above, we're now barely dots in a black hole, and I decide there's no way our crew can get down here with heavy gear on their backs. Jay and I head back up. Day turns to dusk as hundreds of bats begin to circle in the trees. As Jay promised, it is beautiful. But this isn't what we came for. So, just a few weeks later, on the heels of a violent rainstorm, our gear lowered earlier on ropes, we make the descent again.
This is crazy. Oh, bat guano. Nice.
And we made it.
And we got to go back up in the dark, huh?
Yeah, but going up's the easy part.
Yeah, right.
But as we settled on the rocks, covered with bat guano, it happened. The miracle of nature we had waited for. Bats began to emerge by the hundreds. It looks like the bat drop for a science fiction movie. Bats are everywhere, whooshing by our heads and moving so fast it is almost impossible to see their wings move.
This is incredible.
Told you it was nice down here.
I just love the fact that they're flying in between us and they're just everywhere.
Yeah, and they're going up and looking for food right away.
Thousands of southeastern bats are coming out to feed, looking for insects, searching for water. They've been fasting all day, and many of them have babies to feed.
Did they make milk from, how do they feed their babies?
Yeah, when the pups, that's what a baby bat is called, it's a pup. When they're really young, they need mother's milk, just like most mammals. They need that lactation. So yeah, bats will produce milk.
It is sometimes hard to remember that these are indeed mammals. Not even a bird can fly like this. I feel their wings graze the side of my face a few times, but they never actually bump into my body.
And they're really amazing acrobats in the air.
I just want to see if one will land on it.
I would bet that if you kept your hand there all night, even with 50,000 bats coming through, they wouldn't hit your hand once.
We're going to slow things down a bit, frame by frame, so you can see what's happening. It is still so fast, the bat looks like a blur. Researchers at Brown University put bats in a wind tunnel with high-speed cameras that shoot 1,000 frames per second. This gives you a better perspective of how flexible those wings really are. Research Director Sharon Schwartz and engineer Kenny Brewer used computer simulations from that video to then track the motion of joints and membranes during flight.
Only bats have the control of their wing membrane, of their wing that we can see here. Insects and birds aren't able to move their wings in the ways that a bat can. These wings are able to collapse and extend and to form into three-dimensional shapes in a way that an insect wing or a bird wing would never be able to do.
If you just watch them in the sky, they can fly like nothing else. They can maneuver, they can fly through caves, they can fly through trees, they can turn on a dime. So they're really interesting animals to learn how they generate the flight.
When you are surrounded by them, it seems more magic than science. Jay brings up a bat so we can see it closer.
Sometimes they're hard to hand off.
Hey, buddy. And this is a Southeastern bat, right?
Yep, yep. And this little bit down here, that's actually his thumb, that little claw right there. And that's what they primarily use for climbing around the rocks.
It's amazing to see them flying around and then... Well, thank you for the privilege.
You bet. And did you want to check to see if that's a juvenile?
Yeah.
Here, I can take my light off, because we have to shine underneath. With juveniles, there's a break in the bone that hasn't completely calcified yet. And as they mature, that will fill in.
Yeah, I can see. I don't see one, do you?
I don't see one. This is an adult. I didn't check for the sex yet, but here she's probably hungry, so we should probably let her him or her go.
Ready?
And just open your fingers and she'll fly off. There she goes.
Wow.
Excellent.
Very cool. They're so incredible.
Yeah, they really are. They're amazing, amazing critters.
Bats are among the most diverse mammals in the world, and one of their most intriguing features is the ability to echolocate. Simplified, they're constantly making noises that go forth like sound waves. As those waves bounce off an insect, the bat knows exactly where to go. That's how they can catch thousands of bugs a night, in flight. We called on Vicky to show us how this works. Meet Juanita, a Mexican freetail bat with a broken wing, now used for education. Today, we'll feed her mealyworms so you can see how she searches for food. She is so tiny, I'm holding her without gloves so you can have a better view.
Let me say something right now. We would never, ever be doing this without gloves on, but we've both been vaccinated. We've both had the rabies vaccination, and these bats are used for educational purposes, and they have been vaccinated as well. So this is not something you should ever, ever do.
She does sometimes back, so if she starts backing, just put your hand and stop her.
Hey there, Juanita. Look at those ears.
Going, hey, who are you?
I can feel you vibrating.
And they do that to warm up. I mean, just like we're shivering during cold weather, they also shiver to warm up.
Normally, you can't hear a bat echolocate, but you are about to hear this bat search for food with the help of a bat detection device that works somewhat like ultrasound. Just listen. Those clicks are coming from this bat.
That's Juanita?
That's Juanita. So those sound waves we can't hear, and you can see she's moving her head around. So she's looking for a worm. So there's your worm.
When I feed her a worm, you'll hear the clicking stop.
And when
She
gets
eats
yeah,
it
you
like a
just push it,
spaghetti
she'll take it.
noodle, and then almost immediately begins echolocating, looking for more food. If she was hunting in the wild, Juanita would catch moths and mosquitoes and eat her weight in insects every night.
I think she was just scratching herself like a
She
dog.
was grooming, yes, they do groom. They're a very, very clean animal. So, you know, if she got dirty, and of course, she also has Sharon and Vicky germs on her right now.
This is a rare opportunity. Bats can carry rabies, so this would never happen in normal circumstances. To have such an intimate experience with a bat is even more special because they are dying by the thousands. We're about to take you to a cave where you will see bats covered with a mysterious fungus that's spreading like wildfire. In winter, bats hibernate. They adjust their body temperatures, slow down their heart rates, and hang upside down until spring. They have enough body fat to exist that way under normal circumstances. Then when they come out, the weather is warm, insects are plentiful, and they build up their fat reserves once more. But several years ago, people in northern states began to report bats flying around during the day and in the middle of winter. The bats could not find food. They tried to drink snow because they could not find water. Biologists began checking out caves and found sick bats with white fuzz on their noses, some completely encapsulated by what they later learned is a fungus. They call it white nose syndrome, and in 3 years it has already killed at least 1 million bats. As you can see from this map, it spreads rapidly. Many of the dead bodies are sent to Dr. Kevin Keel at Southeastern Cooperative Wildlife Disease Study on the campus of UGA. On the day we visited, Keel was working with bats from West Virginia.
Sometimes you can see areas on the ears. We look very carefully at the muzzle. Even if you can't see it, when the bats come in to the diagnostic lab, you can't assume that they aren't infected.
He takes DNA from various parts of the body, but when he brings out a refrigerated sample taken 2 weeks ago, you begin to see why this fungus can spread so quickly.
So that fungus is continuing to grow even though you've cut it off the wing and put it...
Oh, absolutely.
The fungus grows even on dead tissue. Weeks later, we join Keel on a field trip to West Virginia. He believes samples taken directly in a cave may offer more clues. Along with West Virginia biologists, we cover up with disposable suits, then tape the legs to our boots. It is a short walk to the cave, but as soon as we arrive at the entrance, biologist Craig Styler knows something is very wrong.
That is not good. The bats this time of year should be deep in the cave hibernating. They should be in a place where the temperature is fairly stable. Obviously, where they are now, it's going to get below freezing at night. So this is not a good place. This is totally unnatural behavior, and it's not a good sign at all.
There are dead bats at the mouth of the cave and others most certain to die since they have now come out of hibernation. Still, we hold out hope. We make our way deep into the cave. There is a wall that's usually covered with so many bats it looks like a fur coat. That's what we're looking for now.
Pretty much our whole cave region of the state is now affected by white nose syndrome. So in a matter of 2 years, it's basically covered the state.
3 caves surveyed in 2009 lost 97% of their little brown bats. And when we reach the wall that in previous years was covered with little brown bats, it is empty. As the team begins to look around, fungus is visible on many bats. Look closely at the white on the nose and the mouth. Somehow this fungus wakes the bats up too early or kills them while they sleep. Even here, it is thought a lot of the bats clinging to these walls are already dead or dying.
Yeah, a lot of the bats, especially the tricolors, when we see them in the cave dead, they're actually hanging on the cave wall as if they were hibernating. So they're just dying in place. They might be scavenged by something. Sometimes they just dehydrate and mummify. So some of the bats we're counting as alive, they're too far away that we can't tell if they're alive or not. So we may be counting dead bats as alive, so the decline may be even larger than we think it is.
Look at this one. You can see it gasping for breath. Its face so covered with the fungus you can barely make out its eyes or nose. The cave lit by our headlamps, we all get to work. Kevin Keel needs as much blood and spores from the fungus as he can get. This has become a very serious race against time.
You know, once the disease gets out there, it really is going to do its thing, and it's hard for us to do anything to stop it in most cases. And this is probably, you know, a really good example. And it's awful too because the bats are dying so quickly. I mean, they're going to be gone before we can figure out what to do about it.
The wings and muzzle of the bats are swabbed for spores. The bat is euthanized, then blood samples are taken. Even for scientists used to death, this is alarming.
It's amazing how many of these bats here really are very, very sick, and how many we've seen dead when we're coming in. And those that we see like this probably aren't going to make it. They're probably all going to die. This one's got the classic signs, and obviously that's why it's called white nose syndrome. You see just a lot of fungal growth right around the mouth.
The work continues for most of the day, each researcher aware that this cave could be empty next year. The numbers say it all. February 18, 2010, Craig Styler's team counted more than 2,000 tricolored bats and 1,307 little browns. The day of our visit, there were only 922 tricolored bats and 330 little browns. And that's assuming all those counted were actually alive. Back in Keel's lab, he shows me what white nose does. It eats away these cup-shaped lesions in the skin. We still don't know where it comes from, how it is spreading, or what, if anything, will stop it. No one is even sure why it wakes the bats up. Georgia biologists like Trina Morris can do little more than wait. It is doubtful that our warm temperatures are any protection against this fungus.
Even though it's warmer in Georgia, our hibernating sites are not really that much warmer. The caves are still pretty cold, and we expect the fungus to be able to grow there. We hope that because our bats don't have to spend as much time hibernating as bats in the north, that maybe they won't be as impacted by this disease. And we hope that bats that don't hibernate will never get it. But really, at this point, there's still so much that's unknown.
Morris headed a 3-day event at Fort Mountain State Park to get a handle on our bat population.
Okay, everybody. My name's Trina Morris. I'm a wildlife biologist with the non-game conservation section of DNR. We really appreciate you guys all coming, and we hope everybody has a great experience. Oh,
Teams of biologists and volunteers spend hours setting up nets each evening in hopes of trapping as many bats as they can.
I'm looking at Matt's pole, and I can tell you, Matt, left and right, you're beautiful. Now what I need to know is in and out. Is it leaning towards the road or towards the stream?
This is a national effort. Biologist Tim Carter drove all the way from Indiana. In the world of science, bats are still somewhat of a mystery, and that makes efforts to protect them even more difficult.
The one thing we realized really quickly is that we know nothing about bats. And granted, in the last 10 years, we've learned a lot because a lot of us has focused on it, but I mean, we still simply don't know what some of these animals eat. We don't know where they go. We don't know where they sleep by day. In the summertime, we're not even sure where they go sleep and hibernate in the wintertime.
Each bat captured is weighed.
So the big line is 5.
Yeah, it looks like a 6.
Yeah, I'd say you're right at 6. Yeah, so 6 grams.
A wing bone is measured.
38.
The gender is noted. And a DNA sample is taken from each wing.
There you go. Okay.
That whole will grow back, and all the samples are sent to the Museum of Natural History for storage.
So collecting all these samples today, we may not have a reason to collect them right this very second, but they're going to become invaluable as these populations decline down the road, and we need those samples from way back when.
You ready to go, little girl?
Here in the forest, around 1 o'clock in the morning, it is like an assembly line of bats.
So it is a male red bat. All right, so we're done with this one? We got everything?
Yes.
Okay. There he goes.
They are all around us. We just aren't used to seeing them. But if they disappear, we will quickly see the impact as insect populations explode. The fungus attacking bats is a living organism and therefore part of nature. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "Nature, as we know her, is no saint." In the battle between white nose syndrome and the bats of North America, it is unclear which side nature has chosen.
This is also shaping up to be a serious economic issue. Since bats do eat so many insects like grasshoppers and moths, it can have a major impact on farmers. In fact, one study indicates it could cost the agriculture industry billions of dollars a year. This on the heels of predictions that we could lose several species of bats in 2 decades. I'm Sharon Collins. We'll see you next time.